My name is Stephen Wang, and I'm the founder of Yiqiao. Friends often ask me, why is it, Stephen, that you have turned down and deferred Harvard Law School for 3 times in 4 years? It doesn't seem to be something that a sensible person would do. But I still remember, when I was in Oxford, sitting in front of a computer, close to graduation, telling my mother this news. And she was shocked, I can tell you. This news did not go down well. But I knew what I had to do. And it would become my mission through Yiqiao to help others find their life mission in taking the path less traveled, in making a contribution in this world. I was born in China, in a small town in the northern province of Shanxi. And when I was 9 years old, my parents decided to immigrate to Canada to provide me with an opportunity to pursue an education that they never had. And in my undergraduate studies, I was very fortunate to learn about the world. I went to over 25 countries, in Jerusalem, in Kenya, in Paris. What I realized is that in this world we're living in, oftentimes it's so easy to shrink into our own little tribes because it's comfortable. And in this process, I also realized that a global citizen without understanding one's roots is still missing something. But I realized a Chinese and a global citizen are not in contradiction, but reinforce each other. And I was fortunate during my time in this journey to win a scholarship, the Rhodes Scholarship, to go to Oxford. And here I had the chance to learn from the best minds. And I realized some of the biggest issues facing our world couldn't be solved without the role of China. But in this process, I also realized that I couldn't just learn about China from the ivory towers. I had to learn from on the ground, from the people, from the culture, from the land. And this was why during my summer break, I had a chance to spend a period working at a legal clinic with the migrant workers in Fengtai. Here I learned about stories of people like Wu, a 17-year-old girl who was a migrant worker trying to recover the wages of her deceased father from his former employer. And it was only until the work of the public interest lawyers she was able to secure that justice. And I realized the importance of rule of law, which is why I applied to Harvard Law School. But at the same time, I saw, and I remember very vividly, these public interest lawyers who were so heroic, who made so much sacrifices, that it was difficult for them to sustain themselves because of the low salary, the low societal standing. And we, as a society, I realize, often overlook those who are doing the most social good. So I started thinking, perhaps there's something for me to do. At Oxford, I made a very difficult decision. I told my parents I still had more to understand about my homeland, about this context. And so even though I received the Harvard offer, I asked them for a deferral. And I was very grateful they did give me one. But my parents didn't quite understand. When I went to Yunnan, I called my parents and I said, it is in fact because of the sacrifices you gave to me that allowed me to have the courage to do something different. Here, when I first arrived in the village in Yunnan, they thought I was a local rural teacher because my skin's a bit dark. But over time, with our Chinese and American fellows, with the local education bureau, with the Communist Youth League, we were trying to explore ways to reduce education inequality. And I remember going on the bus for 6 hours from one village to the next, going into the mountains, looking and listening to the stories of the parents, of the students, and occasionally even drinking wine with the local rural teachers, of course on the weekends. And it was these experiences that made me realize, understand this part of the world. And I saw the progress of making education more accessible. But I also saw that the colleagues at the NGOs, the local teachers, and the teaching fellows, many of them started leaving by batches. It was not so much the living conditions or the remoteness, but more so the fact that anyone without the necessary training, compensation, support, guidance could do this work in a sustainable manner. So I came to really believe that we need, if we want to tackle any of the social problems facing our society, environment, inequality, we have to care for and cultivate and develop the people doing the social work and doing the social good. That's a fundamental pillar. And this was the seed of Yiqiao. I also went to Yunnan, from Yunnan to Beijing at the Yangqing Academy. And there we were helping to nurture future global leaders with a better appreciation of China, like many of you sitting here. I learned about the pressures of our Chinese students at these top universities, of following the paths of traditional success, of making more money, going to finance and consulting even if they didn't necessarily like it, of getting a bigger house and being asked when you're going to get married, leaving little time to think about what else they could contribute to beyond their world. And I started realizing that even those who wanted to make a difference oftentimes didn't have the platform channels or the tools. So because of this experience and because of my experience in Yunnan, I started thinking there was perhaps a need, an opportunity to create a platform for young talents, including those coming back from overseas, including those from the private sector, to take the leap in working one of the most difficult, challenging, but perhaps also most rewarding fields, to channel talent where talent was most needed. And that was the birth of Yiqiao. But to do this, I had to tell my parents again that perhaps I had to put Harvard on deferral. And soon enough, a call came from my grandmother from Shanxi. She said, "Stephen, Wang Zai, I love you so much. I've seen you from a little boy to now a young adult, and I just want the best for you. Can you please promise me to go to Harvard this fall and stop doing any of this crazy nonsense?" Imagine, what would you do? It was a difficult choice. But I believed this was something uniquely I could do to make a difference. So I made the commitment. Yiqiao is a platform and a social enterprise that places young talents, young professionals and graduates all across different NGOs and social enterprise and foundations across China for a full-time one-year program. And in the process of this year, not only are they working in very carefully selected organizations and foundations, but also we're providing them with systematic training of social impact, cross-sector leadership skills, and mentors to provide them with support and guidance along the way. And when we first started, to be honest, I didn't even know what we could pull off. And we just sent our first recruiting announcement on WeChat, trying to make it look all professional. But fortunately, within a day, we managed to reach over 10,000 people just by our word of mouth. Thank you. And also, over a couple months, we were able to get almost 500 applications from around the world to apply for this full-time fellowship to work at NGO. And also, we were able to raise over 1 million RMB within half a year from a number of Chinese foundations and global foundations like the Gates Foundation. Thank you. And as a result, from rounds of selection, we selected the first cohort of 10 to start this journey at the Bird's Nest in Beijing. To give you one example, Xu Fei, someone who has inspired me. He grew up in China, but did his master's in Canada, in McGill. He went to the UN headquarters, and there he worked in data science and program evaluation. He had a great job. It was really cool. But then he learned about this exciting opportunity to reconnect with his homeland and also to make a direct impact in China. He was excited. He was inspired. But first, he had to get approval from his girlfriend. But his girlfriend, his Canadian girlfriend, said yes. And he said, "When I finish, I hope to marry you." And perhaps one day Xu Fei will bring his girlfriend to China. And in this process, we see Xu Fei going to Beijing, working in the China Foundation Center, using his expertise, using machine learning to make the databases of Chinese philanthropy more transparent, more effective, more comparable to international standards. And in this process, we see hundreds and thousands of nonprofits and foundations being affected because what they're doing is laying the backbone of a more vibrant, strong social sector. And the head of the foundation said to us, if it was not for Yiqiao, they would have never found someone like Xu-Fei. And one day, it's my dream to see hundreds and thousands of people like Xu-Fei, young, talented, committed people coming back to China to make this impact for a better China and for a better world. Because one day we can not only bring talents back, but also send them abroad into the world. Kind of like a Chinese Peace Corps along the One Belt, One Road countries to promote true people-to-people relations through service. And that's perhaps also the role for someone like those in the Chinese diaspora communities to be a bridge in this effort. Through this process, I've come, when I first started, to thinking that perhaps I was alone. That dealing with these expectations of society, family, and peers is not easy work. But I also realized that, in fact, I am not alone. That there are so many out there who have this desire and dream to make a difference, who just need the opportunity and the courage. And I've come to learn that the value of a good education, it's not in blindly pursuing other people's definition of success, but in defining your own. It's in enabling you to take the risks, to have the courage to choose paths that you would not be able to choose otherwise. Because even when you fail, you can stand up again. And because of programs like Yiqiao, there are others to lift you up. And perhaps one day, I don't know, perhaps I will still go to Harvard. But when I do, I will know much clearer what I'm fighting for, who I'm fighting for, and what I can do to use with that education and opportunity and the resources to build a global platform for Yiqiao and to also advance important causes like the rule of law. It's to just show that all of us can make the kind of decisions that I did and to build the bridges for our time. Because in the end, it is not about wealth, power, or fame, but in the satisfaction in having lived a life of meaning. And perhaps together, we can leave together something for the generations to come. Thank you.